What's up, everybody? It's the Tabletop Tyrant, and today we're going to be doing the Warriors of Chaos Arcane Journal Breakdown. So it's been somewhat of a hot minute since we've done one of these, mostly because, they take a long time to make, and I didn't have a lot of time to make really over the summertime, so here I am now. Now, I want to break into how I'm going to be doing these army breakdowns for anybody new, and anybody who hasn't seen the other one. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to cover generic special rules I'm ifsies on. If you see it in here, I kept it. If not, I cut it out of the video, and you can go look it up in the description, or I'll have somewhere where I upload the special rules in case you need context. Now, I want to talk about the new formations we got. We got 2 Wolves of the Sea and Heralds of the Apocalypse. We're going to talk about new units, the 2 new characters, Frydaal the Chainbreaker, and then Galrauch, which is a returning classic. And then we're going to go into the Arcane Items and kind of give my little thoughts on it and call it a day. So without further ado, let's go! Alright, so generic special rules for anybody that doesn't have the time or anything. I'm going to throw it into a quick context. Armor Bane, when rolling a 6, you apply that X to whatever that number is to your AP value. So if it's Armor Bane 2, your weapon now becomes AP 2 on a wound roll of a 6. Chaos Armor, whatever that number is a ward save. Close Order is a formation that models can take. They'll be +1 to combat res, and they'll get the same things like rank bonuses that are allotted to the unit type, and they'll also have access to marching column, which I have never seen anyone use. Countercharge is something a unit can use, or a model if it has a special rule. The entire unit must have this special rule, so any characters attached must also have countercharge. What happens is you roll a d3, add 1, move that many inches towards your enemy, they roll their charge. You both count as having charge. You cannot countercharge multiple units. You cannot countercharge infantry. It only works on cavalry, monsters, and chariots. So keep that in mind. And also you cannot countercharge if you're fleeing. So, or if you're already in combat. All those things should be pretty self-explanatory, but I'm just going to go through. Drilled. Unless you're fleeing, you get a free redress of the ranks maneuver immediately before moving. Once this maneuver is complete, the unit moves as normal. In addition, a drill unit can march while within 8 inches of an enemy without having to make a leadership test. That's very good. Ensorcelled weapons give you AP 1 and magical attacks, but only apply to hand weapons, and no, not additional hand weapons, just the plain hand weapon. First to charge, anything that charges for the very first time counts as disrupted. If this unit has this keyword on the first charge, the unit it charges will count as disrupted, and they will not get rank bonuses. Frenzy, +1 attack, you auto pass fear, panic, and terror if the majority of the unit is frenzy. However, it does not apply to the mounts for those of you cheese fest eaters out there that want to try and game the game. It requires also that you must charge if you can. So if you need to roll a 6 to charge, you can still make that charge, and you must attempt to charge if you do so. You can only use a hold reaction if someone declares a charge on you, and if you lose combat, you lose frenzy. Rallying Cry is something that takes place during the command sub-phase of their turn. If they are not engaged in combat, this character may nominate a single fleeing friendly unit that is within their command range. That nominated unit immediately makes a rally test. If the test is failed, the unit may attempt to rally again as normal during the rally sub-phase. So it gives you pretty much 2 chances at rallying that turn. Warband, unless it is fleeing, the Warband gives a +1 modifier to its leadership characteristics equal to its current number of rank bonus, up to a maximum of leadership 10. However, a Warband cannot use this modified leadership should it ever choose to make a restraint test. In addition, if most of the models in a unit have this special rule, it may re-roll its charge roll. So this is, Warband is a big one I see people missing on, and that's why I really wanted to cover it. Move through cover is pretty self-explanatory. Models with this rule do not suffer a movement characteristic modifier when moving through difficult or dangerous terrain. In addition, models with this special rule may re-roll any ones when making dangerous terrain tests. So when you're moving your infantry or anything through dangerous terrain, you must roll a d6. On the roll of a 1, the model trips and breaks its neck. You get to re-roll that with that. Very useful, very helpful to have. I've lost more models to dangerous terrain than I've ever lost to freaking weaken some people. And also there's models that can cause dangerous terrain, so it allows you to sidestep that. Now, open order is a good one I want to get into because a lot of people I've met don't seem to implement it very well. So with this trade for the +1 combat res that you would normally get for close order, you get something called quick turn. After moving, unless you charged your march or fled, you may pivot about 90 degrees from the center. Now that doesn't mean gain any inches when you pivot. You can pivot 90 degrees, keeping the center of your models in the same spot. And make sure you don't move your unit. I've seen people try to get that little inch in there. You also do not get disrupted by difficult or dangerous terrain. You will still receive your rank bonuses as you would for close order, which is dependent on the unit type that it has. And you have access to marching columns, and the rules can be found in the main rulebook on page 183. I suggest you all take a look at it if you can. Primal Fury. So what this does is in the beginning of your combat phase, you take a leadership check. If you pass, you may re-roll any rolls to hit of a natural 1. You're going to see this on the Skin Wolves, by the way. Again, Skin Wolves for the next one, Blood Rage. If when testing to see if it becomes subject to Primal Fury, the unit passed the leadership test with any roll of natural doubles, it will become frenzied. So you get that extra attack. And because you're already doing this in the combat phase, there's really no downside of having to be forced to charge. You're already in combat, so it's really nice. A unit with this special may become frenzy in this way, even if they've lost frenzy earlier in the game. Very good to have. I'm going to be having a little video in the top left corner where it says Arcane Journal Breakdown right here. The way that I've seen people do it and the way I've done it and the way events have done it is a unit with this special rule increases its maximum possible charge range by 3 inches. And when it makes a charge, flee, or pursuit roll, may apply a d6 modifier to the result. So here's how people like to implement it. They take 2d6, they roll them, they remove the lowest dice, and then the lowest die, and then they roll their Swift Stride extra die. The way it used to be done was you rolled all 3 and you took the lowest one out. How do you guys do it? Because it's something that still throws me off a bit to this day. And does that sound right for you guys? Regeneration. A model with this special rule can make a regeneration save. So if you see regen 5 up, think of it like a ward save in a way, but there are things that do negate regen, like fire attacks. Now, one thing you should note, it's not modified by the AP value of a weapon. Nothing will get rid of your wards, your regeneration save, unless it's fire or it says otherwise in the weapon or war gear that's being used. One thing though, the wounds you suffer still count towards combat res. It's a big one to remember, and I see a lot of people messing that up. Timber, you'll see this with giants, anything kind of big. When this model is reduced to 0 wounds, the winner of a roll-off chooses one of its arcs, front, flank, or rear, for it to fall into. Any units that are within the chosen arc or within base contact when this model suffers d6 hits, each using the strength characteristics of the model with an AP of -1. Once these hits are resolved, this model is removed from play. Unbreakable. If a unit with this special rule loses a round of combat, it's not required to make a break test. Instead, it will automatically give ground as it's pushed back by the enemy. Characters that are not unbreakable cannot join units that are, and vice versa. So that doesn't mean you don't leave. It means you fall back or you give ground. You do the 3 inches back, and then they can go through and redress how they want. I've seen a lot of people do unbreakable as they just maintain staying in combat. Not how it is. So now that we've got that cleared up, let's dive into the actual breakdown. Yo, if you don't mind, give me a little like, share, and a subscribe on this. That'd be freaking hella dope. I'd appreciate that. But let's dive into the Wolves of the Sea formation. Now, this one's really, really ridiculously awesome. It has Norska vibes for those of you that play Total War, and if not, it kind of runs the way I would feel that the Warriors of Chaos should be run if you go based off the lore. Marauder heavy army, not a lot of, I was going to say power armor, not a lot of chaos armor on the field. It's a really nice fluffy little list that I myself would like to build up once in a while. Maybe when I have the free time or when TamurCon and the Chaos Tours are done, I might do a little one. Who knows? But let's get down into this. Wolves of the Sea have 50% characters, 25% core, specials 50, rare is 33%. That's a big one because most rare is 25. And then you could take 25% of mercs. Now let's get in. what are some characters you can get? You can get a Chaos Lord, a Demon Prince, a Chaos Sorcerer Lord, 0 to 1. You're allowed an Exalted Champion or Exalted Sorcerer, not both, per 1k. So that means in 1,000 you can't take an Exalted Champion and an Exalted Sorcerer. In 2,000 points, though, you can take one Exalted Champion and one Exalted Sorcerer. You can have as many as you want for your points. Aspiring Champions, Marauder Tribe Chieftains, there's no restrictions. You can upgrade your Aspiring Champion or your Marauder Chieftain to a BSB. You can have one per army, and I believe it costs 25 points, and you can give them magical items from the common or from the Warriors of Chaos or from here. Let's talk about core, because we're going to see some cool, nifty stuff in here. We have Chaos Marauders. Okay, nothing new there. Marauder Horsemen. I think those are pretty decent. And then Marauder Tribe Berserkers. Now, that's an interesting one that we're going to double tap on here when we get to the units. And then Chaos Warhounds. So the big differences we're going to see from this, from the generic one, is you're going to look at Marauder Tribe Berserkers. Those guys are brand new, and they're okay. I'll get into those, like I said, in a little bit. For special, you have Chaos Warriors, Chaos Chariots, Skin Wolves, which, why not? Marauder Tribe Huskarls, and Chaos Spawn. And then for rare, we got Chaos Ogres, Trolls, Dragon Ogres, 0 to 1 Gigantic Spawn of Chaos for 1,000 points, 0 to 1 Dragon Ogre Shagoth, and 0 to 1 Chaos Giant per 1k. For mercenaries, you got Gores and Ungores, and again, you can have 25% of that. Now, I want to get into their special rules because they have some chef's freaking kiss right here. Favor of the Gods. If your character kills an opponent in a challenge, immediately roll on the gates of the Gods table. In addition, should you claim the banner of your enemy as a war trophy, roll on the gaze of the Gods, and that applies to your unit rather than the model. So you'll get that whole buff on your unit instead of just the individual model. Really sweet, especially when you look at what Frydaal can do. Seaborn Raiders. Marauders, Marauder Horsemen may take ambushers for 1 point a model. How does ambushers work? Ambushers is really unique because it's almost like a reserve role for those of you that remember old school 40k. So you disclose to your opponent, hey, I'm going to put these in reserves. You then put that unit in reserves, and then anytime after turn 2, you roll a d6 on a 4-up, that unit must come on the table. Not your choice. It will come on the table. You get any board edge, and you have to stay outside of 8 inches from any enemy unit. So you can line them up on the board edge. They come in there 8 inches away from an enemy unit, which is freaking sweet. Now, that doesn't mean move them all the way up the table on the board edge. You know, so that means if someone has a unit that's 8 inches from the board edge, you can't place them there. Just clarifying that. Now, on a 1, 2, 3, they don't come on, and if you have horrible luck rolling like I do, they automatically come on turn 5 if you roll 1s and 2s the entire time. It happens to the best of us. Again, Frydaal, perfect for this. The one thing I really like about Ambusher special rule is it brings in that big risk, big reward. You know, so like there's a good chance you get that element of chance in the tabletop more so than you already do, which is just something fantastic. And then finally, the last rule. Save the best for last, which is what they did in this Arcane Journal, because Warriors Duel is not only cool as hell, but thematic. Instead of rolling off to determine the first turn like you would whoever gets it, you pick a model with a single wound, and your opponent picks a model with a single wound, so no characters and stuff, and you guys freaking go down to a challenge. You continue to fight until there is a winner, no ands if or buts. I'm pretty sure if your model's slain, it counts as being slain on the tabletop, but it didn't say that on there, and if your opponent loses and you win, guess what? You got first turn. If your opponent wins and you lose, they get first turn. If your opponent declines, you get first turn. So there's a good way you can kind of build some lists up with, you know, some aspiring champion of chaos to go in there and kind of hope to smack something around with high weapon skill. It'd be pretty high in initiative. I think a chaos warrior would be the way to go with it. And like I said, really gives you awesome time. 25 points and magical items can be taken on most champions in a unit. It gives you a reason to do it now, you know, get that first turn. Now, Heralds of Dankness. Now, this is going to be the opposite of the Marauders. These guys are pretty much all warriors. It's an all-cav/flyer list and anything kind of monstrous on top of it. So let's dive into the breakdown. You got characters sitting at 50%, core 33% minimum. Really easy to hit though, given the fact that you can take chariots and stuff. Special 50, rare 25, mercs 25. Let's dive in. Characters 0 to 1 Chaos Lord or Demon Prince, 0 to 1 Exalted Champion or Sorcerer Lord, again per 1k. Aspiring Champions and Exalted Sorcerers, endless. BSB can be an Exalted or Aspiring Champion for 25 points, and again can take common magical items and Warriors of Chaos magical items. Now for core, you can have 1+ units of Chaos Knights, so you need to have 1 unit of Chaos Knights, the way I interpreted it. You can take Marauder Horseman and a Chaos Chariot, which is beautiful. Special 0 to 1. Now, I don't know why I've been all about this, but you can have 0 to 1 units of Chosen Knights. Really good. And that's not even per 1,000 points like the regular Force Orc. This is just 0 to 1 Chosen Knights, period, in the army. So, I don't know. Up to you on that. But where I love it, and they did this with the Orc Arcane Journal, Chaos Chosen Chariot per 1k 0 to 1. Freaking fantastic, dude. I love when they do this. Really opens the playing field for converting some dope chariots, or even just swapping the model. You don't have to have that shirtless dude on there with the weird helmet. You put a big old beefy pewter freaking charioteer on there, put some pins in his hand and give him a chain rain, and just have him raining down freaking 2 gore beasts on a big base. Why not? Do what you can do. Do it for the dark gods. Anyways, after that, you can have Chaos Spawn, Chaos Chariots, Chimeras, and finally Dragon Ogres. For rare, you got Gorbeast Chariots, 0 to 1 Dragon Ogre Shaygoth per unit of Dragon Ogres, 0 to 1 Gigantic Chaos Spawn, and 0 to 1 Chaos Giant per 1,000 points. And finally, the creme de la creme, 0 to 1 Warpfire Dragons. Now, the Warpfire Dragon, I'm super jazzed about. I'll be painting one on the channel. That's one of my favorites. Now, let's take a guessing game on what we think the mercenaries can be. Don't worry, I got you. Centaur Chieftains and Centaur Hordes. So you're going to get those drunken little Centaurs running around the field. Super awesome. Now, let's talk about their special rules. They have Steeds of Dankness. When a troop type of cav or chariots makes a charge, flee, or pursue roll, you may reroll any ones before discarding the required dice. So for any of you new peeps, the way charging works, say you roll 2d6, you get a 4 and you get a 1. You get to re-roll that 1 before you take it out, and that could become a 5, in which case you would discard the 4 being the lowest. So that means you would get that 5. Now that's why it says you re-roll it before you discard. Now let's go here. The shadow grows. For every character with a mark, you must have a unit with the same mark of chaos. So if you have a Chaos Lord on a demonic mount with the mark of Nurgle, apply that logic to a unit and give it a mark of Nurgle. Now, it doesn't need to be a unit on Chaos Knights. It can be a unit of freaking Chaos Chariot with the mark of Nurgle. I mean, apply the logic though. Marked character, marked unit. That's it. I think it's freaking sweet. Personally, for me, I like running my mono god armies, but then I put them all together, have one big legion back when Arcane was around. But right now, like I said, I really do dig the fact that you have to take a mark when you take a mark on a hero. I think that's awesome. Boom. Marauder Tribe Chieftains. So, let's get into these characters. Now, I want to talk about the first one here, which is a Marauder Tribe Chieftain. And these guys are characters and cost 65 points base before upgrades. They're movement 9, weapon skill 5, bliss skill 3, strength and toughness 4, 2 wounds, initiative 4, 3 attacks, and leadership 9. And you put those bad boys on a 25mm base. Now, you can take a flail or great weapon. I think the flail would be better in this opinion. I don't think going last is going to really help you and for the extra strength and armor bane. Maybe, but again, I don't know. The one big thing I really like about these Marauder Tribe stuff is they all have access to javelins and throwing axes, giving you a little bit of range, even if it's just 9 inches. Throwing axes, personally, are my go-to, but that's just because they sound cooler. I'm all about cool instead of competitive, but you do what's best for you. You could pack a shield on this guy, giving his light armor with shield a 5-up save, because base he's 6 up. And then you could take a Warhorse for 14 points. And low-key, the new Barbarians they did, the Dark Oath for Age of Sigmar, lends themselves perfectly to this army. And I think you can do that. Or you can always take a Slaughter Priest, like this one, and just convert it and do whatever you want. He's a little bit beefy, though. I'm not going to lie. He's like a Chaos Warrior size. But that Dark Oath on horse, oh, man, I'm going to get me one of them bad boys. Anyways, the one thing I have to say about the Warhorse, I freaking hate when I see upgrades. And let me know if this is any of you that are 14 points. It's like, just give me the extra point, make it 15. I hate when I make a list and it comes out to 1998 or 1999. I feel like I failed myself somewhere because it should say even 2000. But anyways, that's just me. And then to wrap up this model, you can take any of the 4 marks of chaos, and he has the mark of undivided, which allows him to reroll fear, panic, terror checks. And he's also allowed 50 points of magical items. Now, I want to talk about his special rules real fast, because he got some good stuff. He has the Ambusher special rules, so you can throw him in reserves. Chaos Armor 6. Now, for anyone that's new or just getting into the army, that means he has a 6-up ward save. Now, a lot of times, I take for granted that everyone knows everything we're talking about here, and that's not the case, especially having played more games. A ward save is a save that you can take no matter what, no matter the AP. The only way you will not take it is if someone has a piece of war gear or a spell that says no ward saves allowed. Now, when you make your ward save, it's different than a regeneration save. Your ward save will stop wounds from hitting you and stop them from going to combat res. Making your regeneration save is the wound hitting you, like you took that sword to the chest, they pulled it out and it knitted itself shut. Those are just like the ways I can explain it, and I have been explaining it to some of the younger people coming in. Gaze of the Gods, again, the table you roll on in the Ravening Hordes book, and Mark of Chaos Undivided, Rallying Cry. Now, Rallying Cry is really important. We talked about it in the special rules section. A lot of people forget this, and they only will have that one chance to regroup their army, which really sets them up for failure. Now, when we got this, I want to talk about the Marauder Tribe Berserkers. And when I think of the Marauder Tribe Berserkers, Crocubot comes to mind.
I am Crocubot.
Right, Crocubot. So, you're half cold, unfeeling reptile, half also cold, equally unfeeling machine.
You know, half Berserker, half Marauder, but completely redundant. Now, what do I mean by this? I'm going to touch that in a second when I get to their special rules. But for now, let's get into their stats. So their infantry minimum unit size is 5 up, and they go on 25mm squares. These dudes have a 5-inch movement, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 3, because they do have access to throwing javelins and axes. They are strength 3, toughness 4, 1 wound, initiative 3, attacks 1, 2 on the champ, leadership 7, leadership 8 on the champ, and 8 points per dude. Now these dudes are base hand weapon light armor. So they have a hand weapon and that 6-up armor save. Personally, if you buy the additional hand weapons, I would say go with this look for the Blood Reavers. And if you don't like the corn, you can just put a little bit of sculpting putty over it or green stuff. Or hell, sometimes I even use a little spackle because the way it dries looks freaking sweet. Gives me like that textured plating. But hey, anyways, it's all up to you, whatever you do. Now I want to talk about upgrades. Now they have the additional hand weapon, like I said, and they have flails. The flails are wasted on these guys personally. I mean, I know you get the extra attack, but when I think of additional hand weapons, I'm going to throw these guys against a unit of swordsmen or a unit that's also toughness 3, so that's strength 3, I'm hitting on 4s. And I'm going to go for that extra attack with the hand weapon, and they have frenzy, so that's another attack. So each model in the front rank will have 3 attacks, 4 on the champion because he's 2 base. And what I'm going for with that strength 3 into a unit is to wipe out the front rank so they don't get to attack back. That is what these guys are going to do. They're really good at hitting one time, getting in there, maybe blocking them from hitting something else, and that's how I would use him personally. Now, you can upgrade for the champ, which again gives you the +1 leadership and attack. A musician, for anyone that's not sure, they break ties in combat res. They're good to have sometimes. I wouldn't put it on this unit. Maybe a unit like Chosen Knights I throw it on, because sometimes I've noticed it comes down to that banner, that musician for me. And then the banner is extremely helpful, giving you +1 to combat res, which is super freaking awesome. Now, for 1 point, you can upgrade this unit to have the ambush or special rule. And I think there's some combinations you can work out really well with those attacks and ambushing them. But again, you're relying on rolling that 4 when you need them to come on. Now, here's where they're a bit redundant. They have Frenzy, which gives them that extra attack, pretty much makes them immune to psychology, so like they don't take fear, panic, or terror tests. And then when they lose combat, they lose it. But they also have the Mark of Chaos Undivided. The Mark of Chaos Undivided I could see coming in handy, like if you lose Frenzy. But what that does is allows you to reroll panic, fear, and terror checks. And they can't even do that anyways because they're Mark of Corn, or they have Frenzy. So Frenzy is the equivalent to having Mark of Corn. So it's like pretty much they got that Frenzy and they have that Undivided. So they're really not like synergizing well with those two rules personally. So for me, that's where it's a little redundant. Now, where they make up for a lot of their stuff is they get moved through cover. They have open order again. So like I was saying, they get that 90-degree pivot, making these guys like really versatile. I think that when you take any type of upgrades for like throwing axes or javelins, do whatever is cheap or don't take anything, because that Frenzy makes it so you have to charge. And if you fail that charge, you're not throwing stuff anyway. So just keep them base points, whatever you need with that additional hand weapon upgrade and a champion. They have Relentless Warrior special rule, which is a 6-up ward save against non-magical attacks. Really freaking good, because something that's going to throw other players off, they're going to hit them with non-magical attacks and get that 6-up ward save. Will it save you? Probably not, but it's nice to have in your arsenal. So now we're going to move on to Skin Wolves. Look at these beautiful models. Bring the Games Day model back, G-dubs. That freaking mini was sweet, holding that dumb little Empire guy. But anyways, moving on. You got Monstrous Infantry, so you'll be able to get them stomp attacks in. They go on a 40 mil base, and their unit size is 2 or more. Now, these dudes are quick, with movement 7 and weapon skill 5, tapping into that Chaos Warrior weapon skill. Their ballistic skill is nothing, because obviously. Their strength and toughness 4, which the strength and toughness 4 on Monstrous Infantry, for me, seems like a little bit of a drop, but when you see what their special rules and their attacks are, you'll see how it can make up for it. They got 3 wounds, their initiative 4, 3 attacks base, 4 on the champ if you should buy one, leadership 7, and 45 points a pop. Upgrades are simple. Champion for 7 points. Why would you not for that 4 attack? Now, they got them special rules we talked about earlier. Blood Rage, Mark of Chaos Undivided, Open Order, Primal Fury, Regen 5-up, Skirmisher, Swift Stride, and Warp Form. I'm going to cover Warp Form here because it's generic to them. At the beginning of combat, choose what you can attack with. Anyone that played 8th edition or other editions, Black Orcs, armed to the teeth. You get to pick one of these 3 attacks. Warp Form is really freaking sweet. I dig it, and it's really a nice nod. I wish the Black Orcs had this. So they have Enlarged Claws, Barbed Protrusions, and Toughened Flesh. Now let's get into this. You select this in the beginning of the combat phase, or as the book says, 1.1 step of combat phase, for anyone that's really freaking technical. So before you do anything else, you say, I'm going to use my Enlarged Claws, and by doing so, you would unlock AP +1 and gain Armor Bane 2. So you get that 6, AP 3. So that's really nice to have. Barbed Protrusions, you gave an extra attack, so you get 4 attacks base, 5 on the champion, Vicious, and Toughened Flesh. Gain +1 toughness and add 2 to its armor value. These dudes have 0 armor, so you will be at heavy armor. But they do have regen 5-up, so you have a 5-up armor save and a 5-up regen. I would almost say that these guys are really like a must-have for people feeling out of army, because it allows you to pick how you go forward, and you can kind of get a feel for strategy with these guys. Now, I like it too. The Toughened Flesh is going to make it really nice for people that are new to the game, because that's like, oh man, I got charged by something that's going to wreck me. I'm going to, like, last-ditch effort, throw that out there. I recommend this unit to anybody that's looking at getting down on the Wolves of the Sea. Now, Marauder Tribe Huskarls. Now, Marauder Tribe Huskarls. I had to say that a few times. These guys are cav. They come on a 30 by 60 millimeter base, and they're a 5-up unit size, so notice they're a heavy cav. These dudes are movement 8, weapon skill 4, but 3 on the horses, ballistic skill 3, strength 3 for the rider and horse, toughness 4, 1 wound, initiative 3, attack 1, 2 on the champ, Leadership 7, 8 on the champ. Now, I want to talk a little bit about a rule of thumb for anyone that's kind of new or anyone that hasn't gotten a lot of games in. If you notice, these guys have a weapon skill difference. So the riders are 4, the horse is 3. But if you notice, the strength is the same for both. So what I recommend doing is get 2 different color sets of dice. Nominate one color to be the horse, one color to be the marauder. And you can roll them together and pick out the ones that would have failed regardless because you have color coordinated it. It speeds up the game for you, speeds up the game for your opponent. And that's really like a big thing I think that's important, is making sure we manage our time properly on the tabletop. Not like I'm telling you go out and buy crazy dice, but that's what I would do. That's what I do. Upgrades you can take. Cav spears are free. Take them. Flails, you can take Javelin or throwing axes. Again, I chose the throwing axes. They're freaking dope and legit. Now, where I really like it, you can take the light armor and replace it with heavy armor. And with that shield, gives you a 4-up save. Now, you may also take a Mark of Chaos and upgrade your command. Your champ being 8 points, standard musician being 6. I would take a musician on this one because calves seem to always come down to that wire, especially when you charge. Now, we talked about drilled. You can take that for 0 to 1 unit per 1,000 points. And the champ can take 25 points of war gear. If you're taking Wolves of the Sea, which these guys are a part of, you're going to want to take that champ, maybe kit him out with some war gear since he got 1 wound, and try to get that first turn challenge. Now, special rules, close order, you will get that +1 to your combat res. Countercharge, beautiful rule, making these guys just that much more better. Furious Charge, Mark of Chaos Undivided, Swift Stride, and Warband. So very nice. Now moving on. Chosen Chaos Chariots. It's a heavy chariot with 2 steeds and 2 chosen. Keep in mind when doing their attacks that there is 2 chosen attacks and 2 steeds attacking. They go on a 60 by 100 millimeter base, and they have a 3-up armor save, which beautiful, really nice. Now their movement 7, technically barded animals go 1 inch less. I think that's what I believe it is. Yeah, I think it's still like that. Weapon skill 5 on the chosen and 3 on the horse. Ballistic skill 3, strength 5 on the chariot, strength 4 for the chosen and the steeds. Now why strength on the chariot? Is for your impact hits. Toughness 5, 4 wounds, initiative 4, 3 on the steeds, 2 attacks per chosen, 1 attack per steed, coming in at leadership 9 and 140 points of pop. Really freaking awesome. Now the charioteers have access to 2 weapons, halberds and hand weapons. May take any Mark of Chaos for 10 points. Why not? Take a lord, give this thing the mark that the lord is, and you say only spend 10 points on it. Special rules, close order, so again, +1 to that freaking combat res. Counter charge. You'll be doing those impact hits and meeting somebody in combat. Give them a nice little hello. Ensorcelled weapons, and this is where we're going to talk about the differences here. So hand weapons are now ensorcelled weapons. They're magical attacks and +1 AP. So AP 1 magical attacks. That matters when it comes to fighting because you can say I'm going to use my halberds or I'm going to use my hand weapons. Hand weapons against things like those marauders where they have a ward save against non-magical attacks. Yeah, introduce them to the magical attacks. First to charge, giving the unit you charge disrupted and impact hits D6 +1. Mark of Chaos Undivided base. So those impact hits D6 +1, chance you do 7 strength 5 hits. But when you counter charge, oh man, that is going to suck. So moving on, we got the gigantic Spawn of Chaos. Its troop type is Behemoth. It's 60 by 100 millimeter base and 145 points per mini. This model can also be included in a Warriors of Chaos or Beastman army as a rare choice, 0 to 1 per 1,000 points. Now, let's talk about its stats. Its movement, 3d6, super dope. Weapon skill 3, that's going to hurt you a little bit. You're probably hitting things on 5s. But you know what? What can you do? Ballistic skill 0, your strength and toughness 6 with 6 wounds, initiative 3, and your attacks are d6 +1, leadership 10. So, not bad. Now, where this thing makes up for its crappy weapon skill is definitely going to be in the marks that you give it. But let's move into Slashing Talons. So Slashing Talons are strength as user, so strength 6, and they're AP -1. Now, the Gnashing Maw is a gimmicky thing. I kind of like it. You can allocate 1 attack to this weapon. Its strength as user, so again, strength 6. AP -2, but strikes last. If you inflict an unsaved wound against an opponent, you regain a single wound. Nice. Now, the upgrades are where it's unique. Much like Forsaken or anything like that, they get a little bit different gifts from their mark. So the Mark of Corn here grants them impact hits D3 plus killing blow. So 6s to wound, no armor saves. Nurgle is 25 points. You get poisoned and regen 5 up, which is super necessary considering they have scaly skin, which is a 5 up heavy armor save. Now, moving from there, Slanesh. I think the Slanesh one will be the one I go with personally. Counter charge is nice and strikes first. Just get that little whipping in there. And on top of it too, there's a morale thing that comes into playing the game. Whether people want to admit it or not everybody likes when someone goes first. And especially if they charge you and they get that +3 to their initiative, they're not going to want to see you go first. And that's just going to be a little bit of a morale killer for them to have that happen. I know because it kills me inside. And then Tzeentch, the most useless one in my opinion, flaming attacks, magical attacks, and magic res -2. If someone's pissing away their magic on this dude, they are doing what you want it to do, focusing on the big thing while other things move around. So special rules, you got Armor Bane 2, so that AP1 now becomes AP3 on a 6 to wound. Close Order, first charge, so you can disrupt enemy ranks. Immune to Psychology, large target, random attacks, random movement, stomp attacks, D6, terror, timber, and unbreakable. So it can fall on the models depending on who wins the roll-off. I would use this thing more to hit a flank. I wouldn't go directly on. I would definitely use it as a supporting element, and I think you can kind of team this up with the Warpfire Dragon if you really wanted to, especially if it rolls high on the movement value. Get down range, hit a flank, disrupt the enemy, hit them with something you care about, and just break them. That's the way I would do it. Now let's get a move on to the Warpfire Dragon. This is one that I really freaking think is dope. It's Behemoth, so it goes on a 60 by 100 millimeter base, 375 points, which is like a whammy, man. That's a whopper to pay for it. And it is a tad bit heavy in my opinion. You know, I think maybe 325 to 50 points could have gone elsewhere. Also note that 0 to 1 Warpfire Dragons can be taken to Warriors of Chaos Grand Alliance Army from the Ravening Hordes, and it's a rare choice, so you don't need to play these formations to get it. Equipment, Wicked Claws, Warpfire Blast, Draconic Scales. Draconic Scales make it a 4 up. And let's talk about the stats, because the stats are Movement 6, Weapon Skill 6, Strength 6, Toughness 6, Wound 6, Initiative 3, 5 attacks, Leadership 8. That's freaking killer, man. That is intense. All those 6s, beautiful. Love it. Now let's dive into what Wicked Claws are. Wicked Claws are close combat. Strength is usual, so Strength 6, AP2. Ooh, looking bad for whoever gets hit with that. Now aside from the Wicked Claws, he has something called Warpfire Blast. 6 to 24 inch range. Strength 4, 8 in the center hole. AP1 in the outside, AP3 in the center hole. It's counted as a stone thrower, and it's a small 3-inch blast template. It has bombardment, cumbersome, flaming attacks, and D3 plus 1 multiple wounds only for the center hole. And it's a template, so if you roll a misfire, you just suffer a single wound instead. One thing to note with these Warpfire Dragons is it has access to magic should you upgrade it to a wizard. So it's 30 points for a level 1, 60 points for a level 2. Go big, go home, baby. You're already paying $375. Make that thing a level 2.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
You got access to battle magic, demonology, and dark magic. Demonology is nice. I like Steed of Shadows, I think is what it is. I forget. The one with the movement, beautiful. Love it. Special rules, explosive demise, fire and chaos, fly 10 inches. So you move 10 inches with fly, but when charging, you don't use your movement value. You use the movement value on the profile, which is 6. Another one I see kind of messed up a little bit. Now you got large target, lore of chaos, so you can choose to trade out a spell for a spell in the lore of chaos. Magical attacks, magic res -2, so when people cast spells at them, -2 to their spell casting. Mark of Chaos Undivided, regen 5 up, stomp D6, swift stride, terror, warpfire, aurora. Explosive demise, when a Warpfire Dragon loses a wound, but before the model is removed from play, every unit, friend or foe, within 6 inches suffers D6, Strength 5 hits with AP -2. Just the last little middle finger there for anybody that kills it. Fire and Chaos gives it a 5 up ward save against magic and flaming attacks. Another reason why that Chaos spawn of Tzeentch is ass. And then Warpfire Aurora, no ward save for friend or foe within 3 inches of this model. Dope. That's actually really freaking brutal, but also something you need to remember. Do not be putting this thing around stuff with ward saves, i.e. Chaos Warriors with the Chaos Armor special rule. Moving on. Let's talk about characters. You have Frydaal Chainbreaker, Heavy Infantry, 30mm base, 235 points. Named character. Now, what does a named character mean for some people that are new? You cannot put more upgrades and war gear on her. She comes with what she has, and that's it. Counts as an exalted champion for the purpose of list composition, and you can take this, I'm pretty sure, in every list. It just eats up an exalted champion slot. Here's the model that GW made a while that you can use for her if you have it laying around for the Sigmars. You can create your own. I mean, there's really anything you can do. Maybe take Valkia's head, shave off the back, sculpt some hair on her, and pluck her on a Chaos Warrior body. Not anything that wouldn't look, how it should. Now let's go into the equipment. Hand weapon, and she has Storm's Wrath with full plate armor, which is a 4-up save, and a shield, making her a 3-up save. Now Storm's Wrath is a really dope weapon. It's strength +2, AP -1, D3 extra attacks. They're magical attacks and requires 2 hands, but it only applies to the first round of combat, much like a flail does. And special rules, she has Ambushers, Chainmaker, Chaos Armor 5-up, so 5-up ward, Commander and Captain, and Sorcered Weapon, so even after Storm's Wrath is used, she still has magical attacks and AP1 in her hand weapon. Gaze of the Gods, Impact hits 1, Mark of Chaos Undivided, Peerless Raider, and Rallying Cry. This is a slew of special rules. Gaze of the Gods is cool. The impact hits 1 threw me off. I thought that was pretty awesome. Good on her. Now moving on. Chainmaker. An enemy standard captured by Frydaal and the unit joined is worth 100 victory points as a trophy of war. Take that with the Wolves Sea or Sea of Wolves. You can roll in that Gaze of the Gods, and it applies to the whole unit, including her. Commander and Captain, unless she is fleeing friendly units of Marauders, Marauder Horsemen, Marauder Huskarls, Marauder Berserkers, gain +1 of their leadership while within command range. Command range is her leadership, and it's a bubble in inches around that model. And it goes to a max of 10 leadership. You cannot go to 11 or 12. Peerless Raider. 0 to 1 units of Marauders, Marauder Horsemen, in the same list as Frydaal may take Ambusher special rule for free. In addition, you may add + or -1 to the reserve rolls made for her or any unit of Marauders, Marauder Horsemen, Marauder Huskarls, or Marauder Berserkers. That is really freaking sweet. Really dope. Allows you to kind of say, I got that 4, but I'm going to make it a 3 and keep them in reserves 1 more turn. I like that. I think it's gimmicky, and I think it's freaking sweet. She's kind of like knockoff Wulfric the Wanderer, if you think about it. Boom. Now, a returning legend, Galrauch. I was a little upset to see the model come back in its derp form, but here we are. Derpy Galrauch has made a return. Maybe some other company or someone else will make a 2-headed dragon that don't look so derp. And the problem with the model, and while I'm crapping all over it, I guess, isn't the fact that it's like derp and old. It's the fact that if this thing comes out in pewter and not resin, which I can't remember if it's going to be, if you drop that pewter model, it ain't going back together. My buddy said he had one. He dropped it, pinned it, everything. It just was never the same after it broke that first time. And I think that's just kind of like the unfortunate thing about it, because he painted it up real nice too, and it freaking chipped and everything. Now let's talk about Galrauch the Great Drake. He's a behemoth on a 60 by 100mm base, and he's a named character. 465 points, and he may be included in any Warriors of Chaos army list. He's movement 6, weapon skill 6, ballistic skill 3, strength 6, toughness 6, wound 6, initiative 4, 6 attacks, and leadership 9. He's got Wicked Claws, Dark Fire of Chaos, Fumes of Contagion, which is a gas attack, and Draconic Scales 4-up save. Nice. Wicked Claws, strength is user and AP -2, so strength 6. Dark Fire of Chaos is a breath weapon. It's strength 4, AP 1, flaming attacks, and magical attacks. Now, you notice he has Fumes of Contagion. Also another breath weapon. He cannot do both at the same time, so you can choose Dark Fire of Chaos or Fumes of Contagion. Fumes of Contagion is strength 2 breath weapon. Magical attacks, no armor saves, but regen and ward saves are good to go. For special rules, he's got Armored Hide 1, giving him, I believe, a 3-up armor save. Breath of Change, Close Order, Fly 10, Large Target, Mark of Tzeentch, because he is part of Tzeentch. I believe a Tzeentch Demon Prince possessed his soul back when he was a faithful Dragon of the High Elves. He's got a regen 5 up, the special rule Spirit of Galrauch, stomp attacks D6, swift stride, terror, two-headed dragon. Now once per game you can use Breath of Change. Instead of using either of your breath weapons, place the flame template over your intended victims. Any model directly under the template must take a toughness test, friend or foe. What a toughness test is: roll a d6. If you equal or are under your toughness, you're good. If you fail, the model's removed from play as a casualty. If you pass, they live. Now, I don't know if you could take your ward saves. It didn't say you could. So maybe you could remove a dude like that. I don't know, because you're removed from play as a casualty, and it's one time per game you get to use this. Where the waters get muddy with the Spirit of Galrauch here is rough. It's changed a bit. So it used to be a stupidity test, and if you failed, your opponent got to take control of the dragon, which was gimmicky and fun. However, now it's just mean and sad. You take a leadership test at the start of your turn. If you pass, you act as normal. If you fail, you're wizard level 1, subject to 2d6 random movement, and if you're in combat, you suffer D3 attacks from yourself to yourself, rounding any fractions down. Any wounds caused to you by these attacks count towards your enemy's combat res. And you might want to keep a BSB nearby this dude so you can reroll that leadership, because that sounds horrid to have to go through. We're going to move into the magical items, everybody, starting with the weapons first. One thing that got my jimmies in a twist was the fact that you can only take some of these with the formations, like this dope-ass blade, the Obsidian Dreadglaive. 55 points, strength 2, AP 1, armor bane 1, killing blow, magical attacks, requires 2 hands, strikes last. Can you ask for anything more in this weapon? The answer is no. But where it cockblocks you is it can only be taken in the Heralds of Dankness infamy list. Lame. That is what that means. Freaking lame. Now the Dagger of the Dark Pantheon, it's 35 point dagger, strength is user AP 2 magical attacks, and for each wound that's unsaved, shit, add that to your next casting and dispel roll. Gimmicky, I like it. 35 points though, kinda is insinuating her to throw it on a Sorcerer Lord, where they have more points to mess around with for magical items. The Chieftain's Blade, again, another one of those Wolves of the Sea formation only. Strength 1, AP -1, Armor Bane 1, 30 points, magical attacks, +1 to hit rolls. Now, where a lot of the Sea of the Wolves thing's going to fall on its face is they should have made this 25 points so you could throw it on a unit champion and just kind of go out there and duel for that first turn. The fact they didn't means they knew what they were doing. They didn't want to auto get that first one, but it still kind of sucks that you can't take this. Now, one you can take is the Taskmaster Scourge. It's 25 points. Strength is user AP 1, extra attack 1's magical attack. However, at the start of your turn in the command phase, you can inspire your troops, if you will, by whooping their asses. If you do that, they get D3 to their movement to a max of 10. Awesome, sweet. You can take it in that challenge, and it really allows you to get that movement. Even if it's just 1 inch extra, you still got that movement. Moving on, Demonic Plate Mail. Must be infantry or cav. This is full plate, also adds +1 to toughness and initiative. For half your points in war gear, that's not like super bad. And you get 4 up armor save, adds 1 to toughness and initiative. The only thing I can see it kind of being a bit redundant with is you can just buy full plate for your lord, and if you take 50 points, I think an Exalted would only have 25 points left to spend on a weapon, which kind of screws you. Mighty Serpent's Scale Mail, 40 points, Wolves of the Sea only. Heavy armor, gain strike first. Again, I'd say this is useful, but I mean, heavy armor and strikes first, but 40 points, you can't put that on anything. It's not really worth it. I don't think it's worth it personally to strike first like that. I think there's other things you can do that'll benefit you more than just heavy armor. And I mean, strike. I know some people are gonna say, "Well, heavy armor's nice. It's a 5 up, and you can improve it." Yeah, it's nice until you get blasted. You don't have a ward save, and this is 40 points that chews into your items. So I don't know. Thematic, yes. Take it in friendly games, yes. If you're gonna look to like game the game, probably not what you want to go with. Now, Talisman. GW produced that game back in the day. Talisman of the Carrion Crow. 45 points, gain regen 5 up in poison attacks. Is that worth 45 points? I don't think so, but up to you. Talisman of the Soaring Eagle, on the other hand, is definitely worth its 35 points. Become Magic Res -2 on the bear, and in addition, gain a 5 up ward save. I think it's good. It's definitely situational, but if you know you're going up against someone that's going to be blasting you with magic and stuff, take it. 35 points. Now, this is where I was let down. All right. I didn't get the Arcane Journal yet, and somehow it had these banners on there. And you got Banner of the Dark Powers, and you're like, dude, that's such a freaking dope name. I'm going to put that on my shit. Make it a BSB. Make it amazing. This banner, when I read it, it's like, yeah, you can take it. The victory points should be negative. Because it's 50 points, and it's just magic res -3. I mean, yes, it's nice having magical resistance -3, but let's be honest, someone's just going to blast something else. You know? For 50 points? I don't think so. The Sea Raiders Crest, 25 points, and you guessed it, Wolves of the Sea only. Cause fear. Elevate you to cause terror if you already cause fear. Great, throw it on a unit banner, call it a day. The Icon of Darkness. Now, I think this one's cool. 20 points, and during the shooting phase, any unit shooting at this unit with the banner suffers an additional -1 to hit penalty on top of any other modifier. So if they moved, range. I think it's good. It's a good little banner to throw in a unit. I wouldn't put it on BSB. But yeah, I mean, if you're going up against a shooting army, high elves, maybe playing me and my Chaos Dwarves, because all I run is shooting somehow. Yeah, I think that'd be a really good one to have. That's a hint to anybody out there that's going to throw down against me. Moving to the pendant. Now, the Blood Skull pendant is freaking metal and Warriors of Chaos, dude. 45 points, infantry only. Instead of attacking normally, make a single strength 8 hit on every model in base contact. This hit is AP1 and has killing blow. Now, my first reaction, I'm not going to lie, I'm like, went there, I was like, I'll put that on a chariot, get that big 60 by 100. But then I looked and it said infantry only. But hey, it's still freaking cool. You're going to probably hit up the 3 minis because you go from the angles of the base and the 1 in front. So, I mean, that's doable. I think that's not too bad. Now you got the Rod of the Damned. This one's cool. 40 points, may cast the summoning spell from the lore of demonology with power level 2, so you add 2 to the roll. It's really nice. I like seeing this stuff. I like the fireball ring. I think it's cool, the ruby ring of ruin. So what is the summoning for any of the uninitiated? The summoning is from demonology. The little story is from the realm of chaos. The demonologist summons forth demonic beasts to strike at their foes. It's a magic missile with a casting value of a 9, so you need to get a 7 because you got that 2. Its range is 18, and the target enemy unit suffers 2d6 strength 4 hits, each with an AP of 1. That's nice. That's a nice little thing to have, especially in the fact that it's 40 points that you can take of the Rod of the Damned and give it on a freaking warlord. A guy that's not a sorcerer. Demon Forge Barding. This one's okay. 35 points. Heralds of Dankness only. What this does is the bearer of this magic item's mount gain +1 to their attack rolls and any other mounts in the unit. So, say you're running like 12 Marauder Horsemen and you have a dude with this in it, get rid of all that. So say you throw down on some Chaos Knights and you want to put it in there, all their demonic mounts, or get rid of that. Say you throw a character in a unit of Chaos Knights, all their mounts get +1 to their attack rolls. And it only applies to the mounts. Looking at you. Next! Now this one's fucking dope. This one's top notch. The Scepter of Power. 55 points, +1 to cast and dispel. However, any natural doubles rolled when casting or dispelling deals to you a strength 10 hit, AP -3. You resolve this after any results. So if you miscasted, you get to do your miscast result and then eat that strength 10 AP 3 hit. Freaking amazing. Now, on to stuff that's not funny. You get the Grimoire of Ogvald. Now, this is what I kind of like this one. Definitely throw it on a Lord level. Get access to all the spells from the from the lore they're generating from. So Demonology would get 7 spells, including the signature, and you'd be able to cast them. However, you can only cast the amount your wizard level is per turn. So you can only cast, if you're wizard level 4 spells that turn. Next turn, you could cast a different 4 spells, but you cannot exceed casting past your wizard level. Now, the Tome of the Dark Gods. 35 points, Mark of Undivided only. You may discard any number of your randomly generated spells, and for every discarded spell, you may pick any spells from the lore of chaos as if you had the corresponding mark. So what my question is to you guys, because the way I'm taking it is, you're undivided, you can take lore from Tzeentch and Nurgle, because it's any pick regardless of mark. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? That's how I interpreted it. How do you interpret it? Let me know down below.
It's gone. It's done.
And now closing thoughts. Now to everybody who watched this and made it to the end, please, second reminder, like, share, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Arcane Journal for the Warriors of Chaos is something I was looking forward to when it's announced. I was surprised from when they announced it to launch how fast it was for these guys to come out, and I think that was fantastic. Wolves of the Sea are probably going to be one I do a little bit of here and there down the line, way down the line. Heralds of the Apocalypse I think is a really decent list builder, but not one for me. I think when it comes in terms of doing formations, I'll probably just keep it for directly out of the Ravening Hordes, and I'll probably mess around with the Grimoire of Ogvald, or the one where you can change spells for different sorceries. The weapons being paywalled behind the formations kind of sucked. The Dread Spear of Damnation and Destruction, or whatever the hell the name was. I was looking forward to that. That looks sweet. The banners we got, there's not much to say about them. I don't know. I didn't like the dopest one with the dopest name. It's like, don't judge a book by its cover, I guess, because you might get let down. Units that I'm glad to see make a return. The Skin Wolves are dope. It'd be nice to see them drop that Games Day one. You know, it's like a limited release, but that's just me. The Warpfire Dragon was a nice little surprise. I didn't think of all the models they would have brought that out. And then the Gigantic Chaos Spawn, I never got a chance to get on one, and I'm probably going to say that when they discontinue this one. Not because I don't like it, it's just I have other things in my priority list. I think running it as Nurgle would be... Nurgle or Slash are the two ways I would probably take that and just go ham with it and see how it worked. Again, aim it for the flanks, try to disrupt units, go that route. Chosen Chariots being left behind and not being able to be taken by regular lists makes me sad, but what can you do? So anyways, how are you going to build your list? What are you going to take? What are you most excited for? I think one last thing was seeing all the Marauder stuff come out was nice. I really liked it. Very nice touch. Everybody, until next time, next Friday is going to be the Empire Army Breakdown, and we are going to dive into that. Doing it for the homie. Now everybody, have a wonderful freaking day.